Welcome back to 29 and Chronically Online. Today it is just me, no Aaron, no Adia, because I am taking you guys with me on a Dune journey. That's probably the best way to describe it. So, what can you expect from this video? This month I am rereading Dune, the book, just the first one. I am seeing part one, Dune Part 1 from 2021 in IMAX, the reissue. I ultimately ended up watching Dune 1984. Didn't expect to add that one to the list. And then the end of this video is seeing Dune Part 2 in IMAX. So come along with me and let's jump in to Dune together. I would also like to mention during this intro, this video will be filled with spoilers. A lot of this video is my thoughts, my opinions, what I think they did well in books, movies, whatever, and what they didn't do well, and reactions. So if you don't want to be spoiled, maybe don't watch ahead, but also I am not writing full essay on all of these things and plot points and whatnot. So take it or leave it, but there will be spoilers in this video. Okay, this is. My hair gets stuck. Ah! So the vlog is starting a little bit earlier than I expected. I went to Killers of the Flower Moon today, and while I was standing in line, I noticed that the Dune popcorn bucket had a sign that said how much it was, comes with a large popcorn, blah, blah, blah. So I went to buy my popcorn because I was going to get a popcorn anyway. And I was like, this is a weird question because the movie doesn't come out for a while, but are the Dune popcorn buckets already available? She said yes, and I can't even hold it because like the way this is. Anyway, it's wild. It is silicone, so like your hand gets stuck in it. I don't know. I am obsessed with this. When we see part 1 next week, I'm probably gonna bring it, not the worm, just the popcorn bucket, and see if I can use it. But had to give an update because I was just talking about how I think I'm gonna try to get it, and embarrassing sitting at Killers of the Flower Moon, have people in there don't even have popcorn. I got a fucking Dune popcorn bucket. But I love it. I'm obsessed with it. It's my new prized possession. Dune. We're making a side quest. This was not on my list for February, but it ended up being on it. Dune, the 1984 version. I canceled my HBO subscription, so the library had the DVD, and we will be adding her to the list.
Stop making this. No. God yourself untrue.
What?
The plan. Crush the Atreides. Fade. The bomb. Go. Father! The sleeper has awakened!
Am I missing something? They never said that in the book about the sleeper has awakened, right? Like David Lynch made that up. I'm back to discuss David Lynch's Dune. I've had a few days to reflect, and I have a lot of thoughts. Maybe not a lot. I'm going to keep this short. So let's start with a rating. I ended up giving this version of Dune a 1.5 out of 5 on Letterboxd. There are things that I liked and things that I didn't like. So let's start with the short list of things that I liked. There was an intro by Princess Arulin that was giving very Galadriel Lord of the Rings prologue. Granted, this came out, like 20 years before Lord of the Rings, so I know they did it first, but I think it was helpful to the story, and it was kind of in line with what Princess Arulin is in the books for me. Like, she is the one documenting a lot of Muad'Dib's history, and a lot of the chapters start with what she's documenting. So I think it was a good fit to kind of prologue the story, if you will. I was surprised. I didn't see that coming. Another thing I liked was the way the Harkonnens were portrayed. They definitely came across creepy, weird, ugly, bad. Just what you're looking for with a Harkonnen. I know a lot of people like this version of the Harkonnens more than Denny's 2021 version because of the red hair thing. I guess that's, something they mentioned in the book. I don't remember that, but I like them both. Denny's version feels more like brutalistic to me, black and white, bald, like it's kind of giving. I think those were the things I liked. I liked the energy, like, the colors and stuff. I guess we'll get into sort of the things I didn't like, but this is kind of neutral, I guess. So I read a lot of people at the time when this came out did not necessarily vibe with it because it was not giving Star Wars to them. Like, Star Wars had come out a couple years earlier. People, I guess, were looking for something similar and thought this might be it. And they're really not a similar story besides being set in space and like sci-fi and everything. But I did feel like they were kind of similar in a way of like the 80s has a lot of similar visual and audio effects in that sense. So I thought that was kind of an interesting critique, but kind of neutral for me. That probably didn't help things that I felt like it was like Star Wars. The bad things, there were a lot. The one that stands out is the rock and roll playing when Paul is riding a sandworm for the first time. What's that about? That was weird. That was random. I didn't like the end where all of a sudden it starts raining on Arrakis. So why did they decide to do that? And then the overarching issue with the story was the pacing. So we're 50%, 60% of the way through the movie, and the Duke just died. Like, that's the first 30% of the book. We still had 70% of the book left after that. So I feel like we missed a lot of time with the Fremen, and that took away from a lot of the like religious undertones of the story and kind of the corruption and the spice and whatnot. I think it kind of took away from that whole message from the book. Yeah, the pacing was wild. Basically, the Fremen just accept that Paul and Jessica are like the new leaders because they can like fight in a weirding way, which is, I mean, part of the reason that they accepted Jessica into the Fremen tribe. It just like did it rushed the story. So it took a lot of that away and then led to the weird rain at the end where it's like, what's that about? Oh, one of the things that I really did not like was that whole motif of the sleeper has awakened. That was so random. Not in any of the books that I've read. That was a David Lynch edition, and I didn't like it. It was really weird. I know it's like a meme now in the community, but I didn't get it. I just didn't understand it. So overall, I didn't like it. I probably won't be watching it again, but glad that I got to experience it and have some thoughts on the matter. And I do feel like now I kind of know what people are talking about when they reference it and whatnot, but not for me. Granted, it's been almost 40 years, so, that doesn't help things. So I have actually already finished my Dune reread. I read it earlier this month. I read it before seeing Dune Part 1 and finished it, but didn't get a chance to record my thoughts and everything. So that's what we're going to do today. I do want to keep it generally brief because it's a big book, it's a big universe, it's a big world. There's a lot to say, but let's dive right in. So, I would like to start with giving this book 5 stars. If you go to my Goodreads, my story graph, you'll see that it's a 5-star read from me. Something about this, when I first read it, I did not expect to like it. It's a big universe, it's a big world, and I wasn't really expecting to like it as much as I did. And I thought about the book for the rest of last year. That was the first time I read it. And then with Dune Part 2 coming out, I was like, let's just reread it. Let's have a good time. So, a reread, still 5 stars. Things that I like about the book, I think it is so interesting that basically in like chapter 2, Frank Herbert is like, here's what's going to happen. It's the Harkonnens talking about the plan they have against House Atreides. And so the whole first half of the book, I remember thinking, they're going to get out of this, right? Like they know, I mean, they're talking about, Duke Leto's talking about how it's a trap going to Arrakis. And so you kind of, even though you know what's going to happen, you're like, maybe they'll get out of it. Um, Spoiler alert, they don't. But I really liked that. It kind of gave you something to aim for. You're like, where is this going? Besides them just showing up on Arrakis. I also really like it is a book that is in third person, but we still get to see what the characters are thinking and feeling and their motivations and whatnot. So I do like that aspect. In one chapter, you could be in one person's perspective and then it switches to another while all still being generally third person. Not many books can do that and do that effectively, and I think it gets the point across well. The other thing that I liked on my reread, I don't remember when I read this the first time what Muad'Dib stood for. Like I knew it was desert mouse, but when I read it this time, it stood out to me that Jessica and Paul are in the tent after being evacuated from the city, and they're talking about the constellations, and they were talking about how Muad'Dib, the desert mouse, is one of the constellations that I guess points north or points somewhere. The tail points somewhere. And so the Fremen use Muad'Dib, the idea, as like the one who will lead. So I thought that was an interesting connection because I didn't remember that the first time I read it. I just thought desert mouse for whatever reason. I mean, I know that's what it is. So when he picked his name, Paul Muad'Dib, I thought, oh, like desert mouse. He's one of the desert, you know? But along the reread, that was nice, having a little bit more context to piece with what his name choice was. So I really liked that. The one thing that I really hate in the book, I understand why it's there, but love that they did not necessarily put in the movies, and I hope that they don't put in Dune Part 2, is the Baron being into young boys. Like that's weird to me. I know there's like a lot more there and like there's a reason that Frank did that, but it's weird to me. I don't think he needs to be in the movies. He's a bad enough guy without that extra motivation. We don't need more reason to hate him. You know, like you can be a bad guy without having to be creepy, you know? I mean, he's creepy anyway, but whatever. I That's one thing I don't like about the book, but I don't think it takes away from anything, and it clearly shows he's got bad character. The other thing that I forgot the first time I read it, not that this is a big deal, but that Fade and Lady Fenring get together and she's like pregnant with his kid at the end. That slipped by me the first time. I don't remember that at all. To keep the bloodline of the Harkonnen bloodline, even though I guess technically Paul is part of that bloodline, but that's besides the point. He's clearly outside the Bene Gesserit's like circle of influence. He is controlling them. But yeah, 5 stars. Highly recommend reading. The world building is not as intimidating as people make it sound. You know, when you think about the book, I think a lot of people are worried about, like, I mean, there is a glossary at the back that's like 20 pages, but you know, once you kind of have an idea of what's going on, I mean, he builds the world in a natural way and with natural progression. The last thing that I would like to mention while I'm talking about the book, does anybody else feel like this map is like really hard to read? Like I can't find half the stuff on it when they're talking about it. So would love to hear what other people's comments are about this map. Chime off below. We are here to talk about Dune Part 1, the one that came out in 2021. I'll make it quick. Did not end up making a little vlog after the movie because we were waiting for the credits to end, saw the 10-minute sneak peek. It was a vibe. But I did want to mention, had to wear the Timmy shirt, which was fun. And I have another shirt to wear to the Part 2 premiere. But yeah, this was the first time that I'd seen Dune not just like in my home, and it was the reissue in IMAX, which was incredible. The sound incredible, the IMAX screen incredible. I mean, it was just like, it felt like a real universe, and it felt like that in my home too, but seeing it again was just wild. In theaters, on the big screen, everything was crystal clear, everything was huge. Really excited for part 2. We got to see the 10-minute sneak peek. I can spoil a little bit because this whole video is kind of spoilers. It is Paul riding a sandworm for the first time, and I guess it took 4 months to film. It's like 5 minutes or less, but the way the IMAX seats were shaking in the theater, wild. So Talk about best sound Oscar winner for 2025 in bag. The one thing that is so interesting about everything that's happening with all the trailers and the press and everything that a lot of people online are talking about, but none of the cast is talking about, is what's going to happen with Aaliyah. You know, they end part one with Jessica being pregnant and we see a baby in one of Paul's visions. So it just makes you wonder, like, there will definitely be nightmare fuel coming in part two, because that child, she's not been seen in any trailers, and I don't think that Denny would cut. Like, she has such an impact moving forward in the universe, and he has mentioned, you know, potentially a Dune Messiah, and then he would like for the series to continue after him with, you know, other books. So it's like, he wouldn't just cut her out. Being able to see everything on the big screen, I felt like it was more impactful. It was way more involved and way more gripping is the best way to describe it. I already finished the recording for my thoughts on Dune Part 1, the movie. Obviously the movie. But I was sitting here reflecting and forgot to mention that I did like that the screenwriters ended up removing the dinner scene. I love that scene in the book. I think it, you know, says a lot about the atmosphere on Arrakis politically and, you know, culturally. But thinking about how the screenplay was adapted, I think if you have to cut stuff because it's already 2 hours and 45 minutes, that's probably the thing to do it, because it doesn't help move the story forward necessarily. I mean, in the book it does, but in the movie it feels fine without it. You kind of forget that it's not there. So I just wanted to include that because it was a thought that popped into my head.
When I first watched Dune, I watched it on a television and the vibes weren't there. I rated it a 3.5 out of 5 on Letterboxd, which felt right at the time. Rewatching it in IMAX was life changing. I could feel and hear everything. Also, Timothy Chalamet was meant for IMAX. I love that man. He is so beautiful. And I changed my 3.5 star on Letterboxd to 5. She was so beautiful. The sound design in IMAX is quite literally just worth it alone. The visuals, Oscar Isaac dying, beautiful. Everything in IMAX should never die. I'd argue better than Dolby.
That's bold. Better than Dolby is bold. I will say that you could feel everything in that theater. Like, everything. I don't know if it's just our IMAX theater that we have here, but it is the loudest theater on the planet, which I feel like for Dune is pretty appropriate. We also saw Oppenheimer there, and I felt that bomb go off, so pretty similar vibes. But I am a big fan of Dune. I would have given it a 5 out of 5 on a television. Just, it's cinematically a masterpiece. I love her. I do think Timmy Shao does great in the film, and also we love our girl Zendaya. She's just built for that, even though she does not speak in the film for like 80% of the first movie, and that's okay. I think there's a lot of thought process behind the first movie, and you kind of have to like think about it pretty aggressively with his visions and everything like that. So big fan, I like it. I'm very excited for part 2 to kind of see where that story goes and what's going to happen, and if he stays a good guy or becomes a bad guy. And I really need to read the books, but haven't been that committed yet. So, but large fan. I liked it a lot.
Breaking news. The London Dune premiere is taking place today, and the cast photos came out. First of all, stunning, iconic, we love them all. Why was Anya Taylor-Joy there? We all know why she was there, and we all saw this coming, but the way that this just confirms so much, and it has me questioning. So obviously she confirmed at the event that she is in part 2. We're all pretty sure what character she plays. So my question is, will she be voicing a toddler, which arguably is what I'm looking for in this version? I've been seeing people online say that maybe there's a vision that Paul has in which she is, you know, a teenager or whatever. I think that's also possible, but fingers crossed she's voice acting, or they like CGI her face onto like a child. I know that sounds really creepy, but I just feel like that's the nightmare fuel that I am needing Aaliyah to give. So we're 10-ish days out from my viewing of part 2, so fingers crossed, I guess. Crazy that this happened today.
because they were holding on so long. I mean, there's not one trailer with Aaliyah in it, so why now? Interesting. Crazy. Wild. Talk about whatever you want to talk about. Let's start with star ratings. Thoughts?
I gave it a 5
Already?
out of 5 on Letterboxd, yeah.
Okay.
I'd give it a 4.5 out of 5. Only because, mostly because I'm stupid and I thought things were going to happen in this movie, but they're in the next movie, so. That's my bad.
Okay, I led you astray with Jason Momoa, and I'm so sorry.
I just kept waiting for him to pop up with a jump scare, and he never came, and I was so confused.
I'm so sorry that I took your star rating down just because of that.
4.5.
I know. I think I have to give it a 5, even though I think I've seen that movie already because the trailer gave so much info to us.
So much
It
information.
gave so much.
I blame the strike personally because they had to keep us excited for the movie and they kept releasing trailers and almost every scene that Austin Butler is in, you've seen a little bit already.
I'm going to be honest, I thought
Yeah.
Austin Butler was going to be in it a little bit more.
Based on the way people
were talking about it,
In
and
the
then every
trailers.
scene I saw him was just the trailers, and I was like, oh no. And then he died, and I was like, oh, okay.
Spoiler.
I said there were going to be spoilers in this video, so we're good.
He didn't die, or did he?
He sounded creepily like Stellan.
Oh, I loved it.
Yeah.
I had a moment where I was like, who is speaking?
I did
Yeah.
Who
too.
is this man?
Yeah, I thought the other guy was talking, and then it was him, and I was like, interesting. Didn't know his voice could go that low.
I didn't know he could do something other than Elvis.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Thank God he can do
Joke's
something
over,
else.
everyone. Austin Butler's been redeemed. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, he wins this one. That
He
bald
won
man.
this one. Yeah,
He's got a
exactly.
weird shaped head.
It's that bald
It's
cap.
the bald
Dude,
cap.
it made
You
a
could
weird-
tell it was a bald cap.
weird
bump
They
on
got
the
a little
back.
too close, and I was like, you can see on his like.
They do like the eyebrow thing too. Like they gave him all three of them, the Harkonnens, like the eyebrow, like the caveman eyebrow.
Yeah.
Which I guess Timothy
It
kind of
also-
has naturally, doesn't he? So
Yeah.
Harkonnen.
Damn. Another
Just
plot
a little.
twist.
I literally needed
Wait, but I
subtitles.
thought we knew that. I thought we knew that from movie 1.
That he's a Harkonnen?
Yeah.
I don't think we
No,
did.
we didn't know
Oh,
that.
okay. Well, I thought he said it because
He
You've heard
doesn't
the
know
books.
that.
No.
He didn't figure it out until he drank the poison.
Well, I thought in the first movie in the tent he said we're related to the Harkonnens, and then in this movie he found out he was literally the grandson of the Baron. I thought that's the
Oh,
difference.
it
I didn't
could be.
realize that it was the whole Harkonnen reveal. So, okay, there was a line where they said we're Harkonnens, so we're gonna fight like Harkonnens to live or whatever. That was not in the book, but it was very powerful in the moment. I was like, whoa.
It was very powerful.
Yeah.
I didn't expect his mom to be a Harkonnen, so that was
Okay.
kind of the like plot twist I wasn't ready for.
Speaking of Jessica, she acted her ass off in this movie.
She
She
deserves-
scared me.
She threw down some
Yeah.
dance floor moves during an Exorcist scene that were just
Yeah. Oh my
I mean,
god.
truly iconic of her.
Yeah, she was giving like
Her
She was giving a
haunted-
lot.
Her,
Yeah.
She was giving a lot.
her electricity was turned off.
I
She's
hope she
paying
gets
them
an
bills.
Oscar nom for Best Supporting Actress because she
Yeah.
really like was a standout for me. I don't
like
know.
debatably had a tone switch with her when she drank the
Oh.
water life. Yeah,
Mhm.
and I had a moment where I was like, I don't know if I like you.
Well, you're not supposed
I'm gonna
to.
support you in
Yeah.
all your decisions because women, but I had a moment
Yeah.
where I was like,
Well,
and that's when you know someone's a great actor with that
Yes.
tone change. With
And
such
after-
a simple like act.
After he kills Jamis in the book, like Rebecca says something to him. Not Rebecca, Jessica. Her name's Rebecca Ferguson, so I keep thinking it's her.
For you.
Jessica.
For your knowledge.
Yeah, for your
For
knowledge.
Jessica.
For Jessica, but he literally says like she is my enemy, and so I feel like you end the first movie with that a little bit, but you don't get the full thing. But then when she changes, you're like, whoa,
Yeah.
that's my
well,
enemy.
and then also
You're like, I get
Timmy
it
Boy's
now.
having all the like visions of her being
Yeah.
like the death of
Oh.
all of the people. And you're
Yeah,
like,
the
okay,
holy
so, like,
war.
She might not be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Literally mouth dropped when there was a fetus on my screen that was talking.
For what? Like it happened several times.
Yeah.
She just spoke more than Anya Taylor-Joy did, and
I know.
she
Which I think was way better because I was expecting Anya Taylor-Joy's face CGI'd onto a toddler. So the
Thank
fact
God
that
they
it was
didn't
just
do
a
that.
fetus, like I think it was creepier.
It was
actually.
way creepier,
and I
yeah.
loved it.
It would have been just disturbing if it was her
Yeah.
CGI'd onto a
Well,
toddler.
and
it
it,
made
it wouldn't be
sense.
creepy. It would just be like weird.
Yeah. In the 1984 version, they have an actual toddler that just talks like an adult, which is really off-putting. So I was really expecting something similar to that.
We have the
That really-
technology now.
Well, that's what I was
that
thinking. I'm
checks
like,
out.
they'll CGI her on here because we have the technology to do that now, but they
Yeah.
They're
didn't.
gonna make a fetus face look like her, so that would just
Well,
Yeah.
you just squish her little face on.
Jesus.
I'm sure it's possible.
I gotta give my props to Hans Zimmer.
Always.
Sound design really
Always.
does things for
Yeah.
me.
Always.
And this is one of
I've
them.
been
Do you
listening.
think if I'm deaf in my late 50s, it will be due to seeing
Because of
movies
IMAX?
in IMAX?
IMAX
But-
wasn't even that loud today.
I was thinking that too, but they did say, like, do you want to feel like you're in a movie? Watch IMAX. Like, in the
And-
trailer for
and
IMAX, and that's fair.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
real.
I'd argue I like IMAX so much better than Dolby.
Me too. I would see
So-
something in IMAX over Dolby any day.
Yeah.
I think.
If they could just combine the two, I think we'd have a really great experience. But
We're not doing that. Anyway, my arm's tired. I think we're done.
Bye.
Also did not mention during my video with Nikki and Devin, meant to, but forgot, the religious overtures were kind of phenomenal. I don't know how else to describe it. Like, I just feel like that is such a big portion of the book, and to see the Fremen and how they're worshiping Paul, I loved the visualization of it, because I just feel like that is so integral to the story, and that's what we missed in the 1984 version. There was just none of that there. I mean, obviously we got to see a lot more with the Fremen in this one too, but I really just appreciated that that was included in the way that it was. Erin, on a scale from 1 to 10, how excited are you for me to shut up about Dune?
I'll give you a 1 because it honestly doesn't really bother me.
How excited am I? Gosh. I'm so excited, actually, to finally be able to scroll on Twitter and not see the words Dune or Dune Part 2 or Zendaya or Tom Holland. But what I'm really excited for is to be free from the shackles of Katie's thoughts about Dune. So a 10, for sure.
So I'm a solid 8, probably 8.5. Most of my Twitter is Katie, and I am excited to see some new content that is not all Dune related, or it is at least going to be the new Dune movie versus just Dune 1. So pretty excited.
I would say 3 out of 10. I am your greatest supporter, probably other than your husband, in your endeavors of fangirling. Also, I'm kind of thrilled for Dune Part 2, and I would love to see other people's thoughts, even if it is just your Twitter. Girl boss your way through Dune Part 2 on Twitter.
We'll comment.